Hello. For tonight's Grizzly Tale, I'm going to read you a story from Fearsome Tales for Fiendish Kids. These are cautionary tales that I wrote for lovers of squeam. Tonight's story is called The Chipper Chums Go Scrumping. What a summer holes it was! Algy and his best chum Col, and Algy's dog Stinker, were spending 6 whizzing weeks in Kent with Col's Aunt Fanny and Uncle Herbert. They had made oodles of new friends during their stay, and had formed a ripping gang called the Chipper Chums for the express purpose of having adventures. There was tousled-haired Ginger and his little sister Alice, whose father was a sea captain and captured pirates in the Indian Ocean, and Sam, who lived in Honeysuckle Cottage at the end of Sunny Meadow Lane. Sam was a girl with a boy's name, but nobody teased her about it because she was so big. That horrible Dick Stick dared to once. He called Sam the Man, but Sam was the world's best boxer and simply beat Dick up. How they laughed to see Dick sent packing with a bloody nose and tears streaming down his unwashed face. "And jolly well don't come back," shouted Sam as Dick sneaked back to his mother, who was hanging out rat skins on the washing line. The sticks were so poor that they didn't have 2 pork chops to rub together. But what did the chums care, so long as the sun blazed down all day and the ginger beer flowed like wine. One day, Algy and Col got out of bed. "What a corker of a morning," said Algy enthusiastically, pulling back the curtains and looking out at the sunshine. "It's a perfectly gorgeous day for a picnic," agreed Col, pulling on his shorts and knee-length socks. "I say, do you think Ginger, Alice and Sam would like to come with us? We could have an adventure." "Count me in," said Algy, as the bedroom door flew open and Stinker rushed in to join them. Stinker was a mixed-up dog. Algy called him a Hind 57 because he was 57 different varieties, with a long shaggy face and a tail that never stopped wagging. He leapt at Col and knocked him flat on the bed. Algy laughed as Stinker licked Col all over with his rough tongue and barked playfully. "Yes, all right," said Algy, patting his dog on the head. "You can come too, old boy." Stinker was so pleased that he jumped all over Algy and licked him too. "I think we'd better go down for breakfast," said Col. "I can smell Aunt Fanny cooking muffins, kippers, kidneys and kedgeree in the kitchen." "Hurrah!" cheered the 2 boys. "Kedgeree, our favourite." Then they pulled on their clothes and skipped downstairs with Stinker bounding along behind them. "I think a picnic would be a very nice idea," said Aunt Fanny, as she took a loaf of freshly baked bread out of the oven. "I've got some scones you could take, and Uncle Herbert could pick some lovely tomatoes from the garden." Uncle Herbert scratched his long beard. "Well, maybe I could find some ginger beer in the cellar," he said. "Oh, would you, Uncle Herbert?" shouted Algy and Col together. "Ginger beer would be grand, and some homemade biscuits, and thick slices of farmhouse cheddar cheese, and lashings of fresh strawberries and cream," added Algy. Aunt Fanny and Uncle Herbert laughed. "Whoa there, you sly fellows," joshed Uncle Herbert. "We're not made of money. I'm not the King of England, you know." "Oh, don't be so mean," said Aunt Fanny. "They're growing boys. They need all the food they can get. Now, you 2 run along and play while I prepare the hamper." "Gosh, thanks," said Col, giving his aunt a kiss on the cheek. "You're the best aunt a lad could wish for." Then the boys ran out into the garden, leaving Aunt Fanny to prepare their slap-up picnic and wash up their plates from breakfast. It was scorching hot outside as Algy and Col cycled down the lane to Ginger's house. "Can Ginger and Alice come out to play?" Coll asked Ginger's mother, who was baking gingerbread men in the kitchen. "We're having a picnic," added Algy. "Get down, Stinker," said Ginger's mother sternly. Stinker was trying to chew the legs off the gingerbread men. "Gosh, I'm sorry," said Coll. "That's the trouble with dogs. They've got no manners." "Dogs will be dogs," smiled Ginger's mother. "It's good to see someone with an appetite around here. Now, you have a glass of my freshly squeezed lemonade while I go upstairs and see if Ginger and Alice are ready." 2 minutes later, Ginger and Alice came tumbling into the kitchen. "Hurrah!" shouted Ginger. "Am I glad to see you two. A picnic, you say?" "And an adventure," said Algy. "Hurrah!" cheered Ginger again. "Adventures are grand." "Can I bring my teddy bear?" asked Alice, who was only 3. "Of course," cried Coll. "The more the merrier, Alice. Besides, if you need to have a sleep later on, you'll have something to cuddle." Alice beamed from ear to ear. How she admired Coll. He was always so nice to her. "Now you'd better take some gingerbread men with you," said Ginger's mother, "just in case you get hungry before the picnic." "Oh, rather," grinned Ginger. "I simply love gingerbread men." In fact, they all did. So Ginger's mother wrapped up a dozen in a muslin cloth and tucked them inside Ginger's blazer. "Make sure you're back before sundown," she waved as they cycled off down the road towards Honeysuckle Cottage. "And don't get into mischief." Sam was in the back garden catapulting pebbles at a row of rusty tin cans on top of the wooden fence. "Morning, men," she roared. "And girls," said Alice sweetly. "And Alice," added Sam. "How could I possibly forget you?" Alice grinned again. Everyone was so nice to her. Secretly, she liked Sam more than all the others, though, because she was a big, strong girl. "What's the plan for today, then?" "Well, we're going on a picnic," said Algy. "We'd love it awfully if you'd come too." "Just try to stop me," bellowed Sam, twanging the braces on her thick corduroy trousers. "There's nothing I like more on a hot day than a picnic with friends." And they all cheered in agreement. "Did I hear the word picnic?" came the voice of Sam's mother from the kitchen. "I've just baked a cake. I'll put it in a tin and you can take it with you." "A cake?" gasped the chums, who could barely believe their luck. "Yes, please." "It's a Victoria sponge," said Sam's mother, which made it just about as perfect a cake as any of them could think of. Half an hour later, the Chipper Chums set off down the country lanes on their bikes. Coll had the picnic hamper strapped to his rear mudguard with string, and Stinker bounded alongside them, barking at the trees and rushing into fields to chase startled rabbits. It was a fine day to be cycling, and they swept past the hedgerows, singing sunny songs at the tops of their excited voices. "When you're in the Chipper Chums, it shall banishes the glums. With the wind in our hair, not a problem, not a care, and a picnic in our tums." It was such jolly good fun that they didn't notice when Alice got left behind. "I say, wait for me," she shouted as she watched the older boys and girls disappear around a corner. "I can't keep up on my tricycle." It was Ginger who stopped. "Gosh, my little sister," he said. "I hope we haven't lost her." "Well, I vote we stop," said Sam, who as the biggest was also the most sensible. So they all stopped and waited for Alice to catch them up. "Sorry, old thing," apologised Ginger to his little sister. "I feel a proper bounder. We promised not to cycle so fast again." "Oh, that's all right," said Alice. "It was Teddy who was scared." Then they all laughed, and everything was all right again. They cycled across Buttercup Meadow and down through the wood to the stream that bubbled merrily alongside the apple orchard. The sun was so hot that they decided to get off their bikes and have their picnic there and then. "But it's only 11 o'clock," said Algy. "Oh, blow the time," said Sam. "I vote we eat if we're hungry." "Hear, hear," agreed Ginger. "I'm famished. Shall we start with the gingerbread men?" No, let's see what Aunt Fanny's put in the hamper first," said Coll. This was a jolly good idea, and they all sat down on the grass, while Stinker plunged his muzzle into the stream and had a long, refreshing drink of water. "Oh, poor thing, he must be ever so hot in all that fur," said Alice. "Well, I prefer ginger beer," said Algy, tugging open the lid of the picnic hamper. "I say, Coll, look at the tuck your Aunt Fanny has prepared." It was a banquet fit for a prince. Sardine sandwiches, clotted cream scones, ripe red tomatoes, and a tin of spam. There was even a bone for Stinker. They all agreed that they had never seen such a sumptuous spread before. Sam found knives and forks and plates, while Algy opened 2 bottles of ginger beer and set them down on the grass. It was simply gorgeous. 10 minutes later, Ginger lay back in the sun, feeling that he really couldn't eat any more. In fact, they were all so full of good things that one by one they fell asleep in the warm grass. Stinker eyed them in astonishment. What sort of time was this for children to go to bed? But as he couldn't rouse them, he decided to join them, and resting his head over Coll's legs, he closed his eyes and went to sleep. When they woke up, the sun had gone behind a cloud and there was a chill in the air. "I say, chaps," said Sam, "we'd better be getting home. It'll be dark soon." "But we haven't had our adventure yet," moaned Algy. "What shall we do?" "How about fishing?" suggested Coll. "I've got some string in my pocket. If we find a stick, we can make a rod and use one of Alice's hair grips to make a hook." "Well, I don't wear hair grips," said Alice. "Well, we could pull out one of Teddy's eyes," said Ginger, "and bend the pin on the back of that." But it was a frightfully cruel thing to say, and Alice started crying. That was not a nice thing to say to poor Alice. "She loves Teddy," said Sam, putting her arms around Alice's shoulders. "Oh, I say, I'm most awfully sorry, old girl. I forgot that Teddy was yours," said Ginger, who felt like a total cad. "But perhaps you'd like to choose what we do," he added, trying to make it up to his little sister. "Well, I want an apple," said Alice. "Oh, yes, what a wizard wheeze!" shouted Algy. "Scrumping!" Are you sure that we should?" cautioned Coll. "Those apples belong to Farmer Tragon. Wouldn't it be stealing?" "Well, not really," said Algy. "Look how big the orchard is. We'll only take a few. He'll never miss them." "And I do so love apples," said Alice. "Well, then that's settled," decided Ginger. "Scrumping it is." And everyone shouted, "Hurrah!" "We'll pack up the picnic first, so as not to leave the countryside in a mess, and then sneak into the orchard through that hole in the fence over there. I say, I don't know about the rest of you chaps, but I'm trembling all over with excitement." "Me too," said Algy. "How about you, Stinker?" "Woof," said Stinker. Well, if Stinker approved, it had to be a perfectly capital notion. The Chipper Chums crept into the orchard through the hole in the fence and ran over to the apple trees. Stinker leapt up at the shiny red apples and started to bark. "Shh," said Coll, taking hold of Stinker's collar. "You'll give the game away, old boy. You must keep quiet or Farmer Tragon will find us." Stinker hung his tail between his legs. "If you sit still, I'll bring you an apple." But the trees were very high, and the apples were just out of Coll's reach. "Oh, how are we going to pick them?" he asked. "I could climb up and knock them down to you," offered Sam. "Well, do you think you could?" said Ginger in amazement. "I mean, you are only a girl." "Do you want me to slap you?" said Sam, "like the time I beat up Dick's stick?" Ginger realised his mistake. "I'm most dreadfully sorry," he said for the third time that day. "I think it's a famous idea, Sam. Let's give it a whirl." So Sam started to climb the nearest tree. Even though she was big and strong, however, she only got halfway up before she slid back down the trunk and landed with a bump on the ground. "Don't worry, old girl," said Cole. "It was jolly brave of you to try." "I think I have it," shouted Algy. "Do you remember that circus that came to town 2 weeks ago?" They all nodded their heads and gathered closer to hear Algy's corking plan. "And do you remember those fearless acrobats who performed those death-defying stunts? As I recall, in one of their tricks, a pretty girl balanced on a man's shoulders." The gang gasped. "I remember that now," said Cole. "It looked really dangerous. Do you think we could do it?" "Well, I don't see why not," said Ginger confidently. "Who's the tallest here?" It was Sam. "All right, so who wants to stand on Sam's shoulders?" The boys looked at each other nervously. "I'll do it," said Algy bravely. "After all, it was my idea." "Well done," said Ginger. "Good luck." And everyone shook Algy's hand, while Sam bent down by the apple tree and waited for Algy to scamper up her back. Algy's plan worked. Standing on Sam's shoulders, he was 10 feet tall, and the apples were easily within his grasp. He dropped them into the outstretched arms of his pals below, and they crunched through the crisp outer skin with gusto. The apples were delicious, firm and red and juicy. But just as Algy had jumped down off Sam's shoulders and was chomping through his own apple, a gunshot cracked through the orchard, and a deep, gruff voice shouted, "You there! What does I think that's doing?" The Chipper Chums froze with fear. It was Farmer Tragon, appearing out of nowhere with a shotgun over his arm. "Stealing my apples, is ya?" Nobody dared to answer. If Alice's legs had not been so tiny, they would have made a run for the hole in the fence, but they couldn't leave Alice alone to fight off the farmer. Stinker rose to his feet as Farmer Tragon bore down on the Chums. The hackles on the back of his neck stood up, and he bared his teeth. "Sit, Stinker!" commanded Cole. But Stinker was protecting his friends from this menacing stranger. He growled at Farmer Tragon, warning him to keep his distance. "Tell that dog of yours to stay away from me," said the man with the gun. But Stinker was having none of his threats. He leapt at the farmer, snarling and snapping, trying to drive him off, to give the gang time to make their escape. "Stinker!" shouted Cole. But it was too late. Farmer Tragon had cocked his gun and fired 2 cartridges at point-blank range into Stinker's chest. The dog slumped to the ground and never moved again. "Gosh," said Cole. "I say, that was a pretty rotten thing to do. Poor Stinker. You've no right to go round killing dogs, you know. I shall tell my father." "Yous can tell who he likes, but tha's been stealing what's mine. Them's my apples you's been eating." "Now look here," said Algy. "We're frightfully sorry and all that for scrumping, but there's no need to take that tone with us. We're children. So be a good chap and put that gun down before it goes off accidentally." The farmer grinned through his stubbly beard. How uncouth he looked, Sam thought. Dirty and rough. The sort of man the police were always chasing. But she kept her thoughts to herself. "Please let us go," she said. "Alice here is only 3 years old." "But if I lets 'ee go, how does I get my apples back? I needs every apples I's got for my cider." "Well, how about you give us a cracking good clip around the ear, and then we forget all about it?" asked Ginger. Yes, a biffing box on the nose and let us go," added Cole. "Fair's fair." "No," said the farmer, grabbing Alice by the scruff of her neck. "I wants my apples back." "But we've eaten them," said Alice, as she dangled off the farmer's thick wrist. "Then I shall just have to squeeze 'em out, won't I?" Cole thought that the time had come to stop this silly game once and for all. "Mr. Tragon," he said, "in case you hadn't noticed, we're all strapping young boys and girls. You can't possibly keep us here. We could run away whenever we like." "There won't be no runnings away," smiled the farmer. "I's coated my apples with insecticide. One bite and the biter's paralysed in 5 minutes and don't go running nowhere never again." The children grasped their throats as the poison took effect. What a perfectly horrible man this farmer was, really mean and unforgiving. Despite all their intentions to escape, he had them just where he wanted, lying helplessly on the ground, unable to move their limbs or open their mouths to shout for help. Farmer Tragon bundled the Chipper Chums into the trailer on the back of his tractor and drove them back to his cowshed, where he reclaimed his stolen apples by crushing the children one by one in his cider press. He extracted the apple juice from their stomachs and threw their dried-out remains into a large, old oak vat, where the children slowly fermented into that year's brew. So, if you see a bottle of Tragon's vintage cider from 1952, don't drink it, unless, of course, you're partial to a little extra body in your tipple.